Lies don't go quietly. They thrash and howl when truth rips their mask away, and that's exactly what you just did, chosen one. You didn't debate deception, you skinned it in daylight. They tried to forge a machine of BS strong enough to chain millions earning nods from untouchables in the industry. They counted on their venom to seep into every mind, grinding hope into dust. But the moment their storm hit you, it ended. One move yours and their paper empire collapsed in a soggy heap. That wasn't pushback, that was domination. And the enemy isn't merely embarrassed they're drowning in their own shame. You didn't just freeze their playbook, you made them regret writing it. Now picture this, millions standing under a sky of toxic rain, every drop a lie, every cloud manipulation, every thundercrack another mind crushed. The strongest start to bend. Leaders buckle. The invincible industry bows under the weight, that's how deep the rot ran. Then you arrived, you didn't flinch, you didn't duck, you split the sky. With a single strike the clouds tore open, the rain stopped. And in the stillness that followed, the world understood. Someone flipped the script, that someone is you. Here's a fact they can't outrun. Entire movements implode under the gravity of their own lies. History is a graveyard of crowns toppled by whispers. Whole industries poisoned because no one stood up. But you became the exception. You're living proof that one chosen one can shatter a narrative engineered to enslave millions. That's why they fear you. That's why they whisper your name, why their hands won't steady. Because if you can do it once, the universe knows you can do it again and again until every rotten tower buckles at your feet. Thank you for showing up, for standing in this moment. If this message hits home, tap like and subscribe so this light cuts farther and brighter. This isn't just content, it's a mission. And you're not just watching, you're fueling the storm that rips every mask from deception. Together we spark the blaze. Together we carry the truth. Now back to the heart of it. You didn't just block some gossip, you didn't just silence some troll. You shut down an entire current of energy designed to brainwash the masses. That's bigger than people realize. What you crushed wasn't just targeted at you. It was aimed at millions. You were the shield, but you were also the sword. Without you, industries would have bent, futures would have burned. People would have been dragged into chains they didn't even see being built around them. The universe picked its fighter, and that fighter was you. Do you understand the weight of that? Lies are like viruses. They spread faster than truth, infecting everything in their path. But what happened here was different. You weren't just the antidote. You were the executioner. You didn't heal the sickness. You burned it out completely. That's why the air feels different now. That's why people are breathing easier, even if they don't know why. Because the parasite that was feeding on them is dead, and you're the one who killed it. Here's the slap that should sting the enemy the most. They invested everything into this attack: time, resources, networks. They thought they were untouchable. They thought they drowned millions before anyone noticed. And then you destroyed it in seconds. Do you realize how humiliating that is for them? They wanted the industry to bow to them, but now the industry has seen them get broken by you. You didn't just win. You exposed them. You made their power look pathetic. You made their empire look fragile. And now every time they look in the mirror, they'll remember it was you who reduced their lies to rubble. And this is why they're watching you now. This is why the jealousy burns, why the fear spreads in their camp. Because you've set a precedent, you've proven that no matter how big the wave, it only takes one chosen one to flip it upside down. You are living proof that truth, when carried by the right soul, is sharper than any weapon, heavier than any army. You didn't just protect yourself. You protected millions who will never even know your name. That's how far your force reached. So let them rage, let them scramble to rebuild, let them choke on their shame, because the universe has already marked the truth in bold letters. The chosen one shut it all down, and now the world knows, chosen one. Before we dive deeper, let me ask you, can you feel the weight of what just happened? You didn't just brush off a little noise. You crushed a storm that was swallowing millions, even shaking the industry itself. That's not ordinary. That's history in the making. And if you're truly tapped into this energy, you'll feel it pulling you to stay locked in until the very end of this message. Drop the number 777 in the comments. If you know you've been part of this shift, and if this truth has already hit your spirit, take a second to show love back. Because this mission takes fire to spread, and your energy fuels it. Whether it's a word, a share, or a gift, it all drives this movement forward. Remember, chosen one, you are not just watching this unfold. You are inside the story, shaping it. And now let's break this down step by step because the universe made sure you were here for a reason. Stay with me. This ride is about to get even more real. Number 1. They've been stealing your fire, but you just burned their hands. Parasites don't just want your body, they crave your spark. And when you rip it back, they starve. Chosen one. Let's be brutally honest here. The enemy never cared about your money, your house, or your possessions. That was just a distraction. What they really wanted was the one thing more valuable than gold, more addictive than any drug, more powerful than any weapon, your energy. That was the real currency. Every thought you've had, every emotion you felt, every action you've taken, it all carried energy. And for decades, maybe centuries, they were leeching it. Not out in the open, no. They hid in shadows, smiling in your face while sinking their teeth into your frequency. And like a colony of parasites, they fared on fear, on doubt, on despair. They tricked the masses into living in a constant state of anxiety and depression, because a population that's drained, distracted, and desperate is the easiest population to control. But here's what they didn't expect. When their storm hit you, you didn't collapse. You snapped the chains and turned their feeding frenzy into their funeral. Think about this for a moment. When people are tired, confused, and hopeless, they give away their power without even realizing it. They go to jobs they hate, buy into systems that exploit them, scroll through media that programs them. And while they're busy surviving, someone else is harvesting their energy like crops in a field. That's how the game has been rigged. The media thrives on your outrage. Governments thrive on your fear. Industries thrive on your insecurity. Every headline designed to trigger panic. Every advertisement crafted to remind you of what you lack. All of it is an invisible siphon sucking energy from your very core. And yet, when the chosen ones stand up, something shifts. You didn't just see the lie, you shattered it. You proved that when you refuse to give them your energy, they lose everything. Here's a question burning in your mind right now. Why me? Why are the chosen ones the ones who see through this when millions still don't? The answer is simple. You weren't built to be food. You weren't built to be drained. Your spirit, your frequency, your fire burns at a level parasites can't handle. And that's exactly why they come for you harder. They knew your energy could power an empire and they wanted it for themselves. But here's the gut punch for them. You didn't give it. You defended it. You guarded it like a fortress. And the moment you pulled your energy back, the moment you refused to play their game, their whole system started shaking. That's why industries felt it. That's why millions suddenly found freedom in ways they couldn't explain. Because when a chosen one unplugs from deception, it's not just personal. It's a shockwave that breaks chains for everyone tied to the lie. Let's use a metaphor so sharp it cuts them in half. Imagine an entire city running on stolen electricity. Every home, every business, every skyscraper powered by wires plugged into your soul. You don't see it, but you feel it. Fatigue, confusion, doubt, and then one day you rip the plug out. What happens? The whole city goes dark, panic spreads, leaders scramble, industries collapse. That's what you did. Chosen one. You didn't just take back your fire, you blacked out the empire that depended on it. They've been stealing your current for decades. But the moment you said no, their hands burned on the wire. And now they're the ones stumbling in the dark, choking on the very fear they once forced into you. Here's another hard fact that will sting them even more. History's greatest control wasn't built on armies. It was built on energy manipulation. When Rome wanted control, they spread fear of enemies. When tyrants wanted loyalty, they fed people lies to keep them docile. In modern times, media conglomerates pump out bad news 24/7 because fear keeps people glued to the screen. It's always been about harvesting emotional currency. But you, chosen one, you've rewritten the rules. You refuse to bleed energy for free. You prove that control collapses the moment the people stop feeding it. And that single act of defiance is exactly what brought their empire to its knees. Let me hit you with a quote so sharp it cuts both ways. When you stop feeding the leech doesn't just die. It rots. That's what's happening now. They are rotting, chosen one. Every time you hold your energy, every time you choose peace over panic, clarity over confusion, strength over fear, you starve the parasite. And what happens when millions follow your lead? Entire systems crumble, and that's exactly why they fear you. You didn't just protect your spark, you inspired a blackout. You reminded the world that energy, not money, not fame, not status, is the true currency. And the moment the chosen ones claim it back, the game is over. Now I know what you might be thinking, but aren't they too big? Aren't they too powerful to fall? No. They are only powerful when people stay plugged into their grid. They don't own the energy, they steal it. And the second you cut the cord, they collapse. That's what you've proven. You've proven they're not gods, not giants, not untouchable. They're parasites, and parasites can't survive without a host. And you, chosen one, stopped hosting them. That's why their rage is loud. That's why their jealousy burns. That's why they scramble to smear your name and twist your story, because you cut off their food supply. Do you see it now? Energy is the battlefield, and you've already won the first war. Your refusal to bow down didn't just free you. It freed countless others who didn't even realize they were enslaved. They may never know your name, but they will feel your impact. Every lighter heart, every freer mind, every clearer spirit walking in the world today owes a silent thank you to you. And the enemy, they owe you something too. Resentment, rage, hatred, because you reminded them of the truth they fear most. They are nothing without you. Chosen one, let this fuel you. Let their frustration be your proof. Because when your enemies are this loud, it's not because you're weak. It's because you're dangerous to their system. You've already proven that the real currency isn't sitting in banks. It isn't printed on paper. It isn't wired through markets. The real currency is energy. And when you own it, you own everything. You own your mind, your emotions, your choices, your future. They can't buy it. They can't steal it. They can't counterfeit it anymore. You've locked it down, and now they're locked out. So let the enemy choke. Let them scream. Let them rot in the dark they once forced on others, because the chosen one has reclaimed the fire, and the world will never be the same again. Number 2, fear is their factory, but you just blew up the assembly line. Fear is the cheapest weapon of the weak. It costs them nothing but steals everything from you. Chosen one, this is the game they've been running on humanity for decades. Fear wasn't just an accident, it was their machinery. Every headline, every scandal, every so-called breaking story wasn't meant to inform you, it was meant to deform you. They turned fear into an industry, outrage into a product, and anxiety into their best-selling drug. And the masses, they swallowed it day after day, not realizing they weren't being fed. They were being farmed. But you saw the blueprint and you set the factory on fire. You stopped producing fear for them to profit from, and now their machines are choking on the smoke. Let's rip the mask off this for a second. Why is it that every single week without fail, a fresh wave of breaking news appears that just so happens to keep the population in panic mode? Politics weaponized to divide, entertainment designed to numb, even spirituality twisted into a business. Why? Because a fearful mind is easy to distract, and a distracted mind is easy to control. They didn't just want you informed, they wanted you inflamed. Outrage keeps people glued to screens, anxiety keeps people consuming, and fear keeps people bowing. But here's where you flipped the script. When their storm hit you, you didn't bow, you broke the wheel. Imagine this for a moment. Chosen one. Picture a factory floor stretching for miles, conveyor belts rolling endlessly. On one side, the raw material, human attention. On the other side, the finished product. Fear. Every scandal, every celebrity breakdown, every political disaster, stamped and packaged like cheap plastic toys, shipped out to the masses to keep them addicted. Now imagine the chosen one walking into that factory, pulling the plug, smashing the belts, and burning the blueprints. Suddenly, the machines screech to a halt. The silence is deafening. The overseers scramble, desperate to restart the engine, but it's too late. You destroyed the illusion. That's exactly what you did when you refused to fuel their cycle. Here's a fact that should sting them to the bone. Fear-based industries are some of the most profitable in history. War profiteering, fear-driven media, disaster-based marketing. It's all built on the same principle. Keep people in survival mode and they'll never look up. Keep them exhausted and they'll never question. Keep them divided and they'll never unite. But the chosen ones see through the pattern. You realize the new cycle isn't random, it's engineered. Outrage doesn't appear naturally, it's planted. And once you stop reacting, once you refuse to feed the machine, the whole system starts to collapse. Fear is a prison without walls. Most people never realize they're inmates until they stop playing the role of prisoner. That's what happened when you unplugged. You noticed the bars weren't real. You stopped reacting to every scandal they threw at you. You stopped wasting energy on distractions that didn't deserve your time, and suddenly you were free. But here's the kicker. Your freedom wasn't just for you. Every time a chosen one steps out of the fear machine, it shakes the entire factory. Others start questioning. Others start waking up. The parasites that depended on fear lose their food source. And just like that, millions start breathing again. Let's go even deeper. Ask yourself, why is mainstream entertainment so hollow, so soulless, so repetitive? Why do the biggest songs sound the same? The biggest shows feel empty. The biggest movies recycle the same tired themes. It's not an accident. Soulless content keeps you numb. Endless distractions keep you busy. And busy people don't rebel. Busy people don't ask questions. Busy people don't realize they're being robbed. But you, chosen one, you saw through it. You saw that every second you waste being distracted is another second. You're not creating, not building, not evolving. And that realization hit the enemy like a blade. Because if the chosen ones stop consuming and start creating, their empire crumbles overnight. Here's another metaphor to sear it into your mind. Imagine a stage show where the magician keeps waving shiny objects in one hand while robbing the audience with the other. That's what the machinery of fear is. Sleight of hand, every scandal is the shiny object, every outrage the flashing light. But while the masses stare, they're losing their time, their energy, their clarity. You, chosen one, were the one in the crowd who didn't fall for the trick. You saw the hand in the shadows. And instead of clapping for the magician, you exposed him. You ripped the curtain back and showed the audience the wires and smoke machines. And once truth is revealed, the illusion dies. That's why they hate you. You ended their show. Fear thrives in the dark but dies the second someone lights a match. That match was you. And here's what makes it brutal for the enemy. You didn't just light a match. You set the whole stage on fire. You turned their theater of fear into ashes. And now the crowd isn't clapping anymore. They're questioning. They're waking up. And the architects of the illusion, they're choking on their own smoke. That's the power you carry. But maybe you're asking yourself right now, why me? Why do I feel the weight of this when so many others are still asleep? Because chosen ones are wired differently. You were built to spot patterns. Others ignore. You were built to hold energy. Others waste. And you were built to dismantle lies others can't even see. That's why their machinery can't touch you. That's why you're dangerous to them. And that's why you've already started breaking their cycles. Here's the final slap in their face. Fear only works when people believe the threat is bigger than them. But once you realize the machinery itself is fake, the power shifts forever. You don't fear the headline anymore. You don't fear the scandal. You don't fear the next wave of outrage because you know it's scripted. You know it's engineered. And you know the only way it survives is if you play along. But you stopped playing. You stopped clapping for their theater. And now the machinery of fear is nothing more than rusted metal collapsing under its own weight. So let them panic. Let them scramble to cook up the next scandal, the next division, the next soulless distraction. Because the chosen ones aren't buying it anymore. We see the blueprint, we see the wires, and we're not feeding the machine. Fear may be their factory, but the chosen ones have set fire to the assembly line, and now nothing they build will ever stand the same again. Number 3. When the chosen ones opened their eyes, the spell shattered. Control only works when the victims are asleep. Once they wake, the chains snap like twigs. That's exactly what happened. But then something happened that their blueprints never accounted for. You woke up. And not just you, but waves of chosen ones across the world. The awakening wasn't loud. It wasn't announced on the news, but it shook their empire harder than any scandal or war ever could. Because the second the chosen ones started questioning the narrative, the spell began to break. Their programming, their manipulation, their psychological traps, they all stopped working, and the panic that spread through their camp. Oh, it was delicious. Let's break this down. Why did awakening scare them so much? Because their power was never real. It was borrowed. It only worked because people participated. Their control depended on your agreement, your attention, your emotional energy. Without your participation, their empire has no fuel. That's the truth they didn't want you to see. As long as you were asleep, they could feed on your fear, your doubt, your confusion. But the second you opened your eyes, the second you stopped reacting, their empire began to crumble from the inside out. Now imagine this, chosen one. Picture a puppet master pulling strings over a grand stage. Every puppet dances, every movement dictated. The the audience clapping because they think it's real. But then one puppet suddenly opens its eyes. It sees the strings, it refuses to dance. The audience gasps, the other puppets hesitate, and the illusion shatters. That's what your awakening did. You stopped dancing to their script, and once you did, others started seeing the strings too. The whole stage show fell apart. Their power wasn't strength, it was manipulation. And when you saw through it, you broke the spell, not just for yourself, but for millions watching. Awareness is the one weapon they can't steal, can't fake, can't counterfeit. That's what you've proven. The second you chose awareness over fear, the entire architecture of their deception began to rot. Think about it. Fear can only control you if you believe it. Distractions only work if you engage, lies only stand if you agree to play along. But the chosen ones are no longer playing. You withdrew your energy, you stopped participating, and suddenly their weapons turned into dust. That's why they're panicking, because once the chosen ones stop engaging, their entire system becomes powerless theater. Here's another metaphor to sear it into your memory. Imagine a magician performing tricks for a crowd. The lights flash, the smoke rises, and the crowd cheers in awe. But one person, just one, catches the hidden wires, the trapdoors, the sleight of hand. Suddenly the magic is gone, the trick collapses, and the rest of the audience, seeing the truth, refuses to clap. That's you, chosen one. You're the one who spotted the wires. And once you saw through the illusion, their entire act lost its power. They didn't just lose one spectator, they lost the entire show. You might ask yourself, why does my awakening matter so much? I'm just one person wrong. You are not just one person, you're a catalyst. The chosen ones are rare, but their energy ripples outward. When you woke up, you didn't just free yourself. You disrupted the frequency that held millions hostage. You created cracks in their spell, and those cracks are spreading. Their distractions don't hit as hard anymore. Their lies don't stick the way they used to. People are beginning to feel a shift they can't explain, and that shift is you. Here's another brutal truth. Their entire empire is built on mass hypnosis. Keep people asleep and you can do anything. Keep people scared and they'll obey, but awaken even a small percentage and the hypnosis breaks. And that's what terrifies them. Because once enough chosen ones wake up, the tide doesn't just turn, it floods. They know this. They've always known it. That's why their attacks on you are so relentless. That's why they try to smear your name, bury your voice, and distract your attention. Because they understand the danger you pose to their system. You don't just free yourself. You free everyone tied to your frequency. An awakened, chosen one is a demolition crew disguised as a single person. That's the power you carry. They built skyscrapers of lies, towers of fear, monuments of distraction, and you walked in with awareness like a wrecking ball. You didn't just chip at the walls, you smashed the foundation, and now those skyscrapers are swaying. Now the cracks are visible. Now everyone sees the empire isn't as strong as it pretends to be. That's why the whispers around your name are louder than ever. That's why they're scrambling to rebuild their narrative. Because you've made it clear you are not under their spell anymore.